everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a little bit of a different video than you're used to me. First, I'm not going to paint. Second, I'm actually on camera, which I haven't been in a while. So today I want to talk about brushes, especially if you're just starting out with painting with acrylics. Brushes can be very overwhelming. There are a lot of types, there's a lot of materials, there's a lot of sizes. I just bit on my tongue. It's just very overwhelming. The first thing I want to say is that you don't need 1,000 brushes. You don't need to buy like every type of brush in every size. That said, brushes come in types and brushes come in sizes, and I will show you this later on way better, but simply said, it's one type of brush but in different sizes. And these are the same size of brush, which is normally indicated by a little number here, but they're different types of brush. Also, brushes are not the thing that if you like buy really expensive ones that they're gonna elevate the quality of your art like completely. In my opinion, better to invest in better paint or maybe a better surface. So if you're painting on paper, or if you want to paint on paper, buy good quality paper that's suitable for acrylics and don't just paint on printer paper, for instance. The only thing to avoid basically is dollar store brandless brushes, because those are usually just bad quality. For instance, this one, it's a flat brush, but it has a very weird usually the rule is the thinner the paint, the softer the brushes, or the softer the material of the brushes you have to use, and the thicker the paint, the coarser. You have synthetic materials or synthetic brushes and brushes from natural hair. Most brushes that I have are synthetic, and synthetic brushes usually have like a middle softness. I also have goat hair, which is a very soft one. Goat hair is often used also with watercolor, so softer brush, thinner paint. But I also have pig hair. So these are pig hair brushes. Those are quite stiff. Pig hair brushes are often used for oil paints actually, but I like them on my fan brushes a lot. Of course, it also depends on like preference, because if you really want your brush strokes to be visible, you would go for a stiffer brush compared to when you want like a really smooth painting, no brush strokes visible, then you might choose a softer brush. So let's dive into the different types of brushes, and we'll start out with the flat brush, the one I showed earlier. I use this mostly for like washes, like you see here, or for simple backgrounds with like simple gradients. But you can also use the tip for line work. I always notice that the lines get a little bit rough that way. The next brush looks a lot like the flat brush, but it's round. It's the filbert or the cat tongue brush. I use it for like a lot of things because it has a great distribution of paint. I use it for backgrounds, but I also use it for round or round-ish shapes. That's easier with this shape of brush, but also for irregular forms like clouds and also trees. The third brush is the stereotypical painter's brush, the round brush. I use this mostly for shorter lines where I need more flexibility, but also for smaller details like dots. So the fourth brush is the fan brush. You can easily see why it's called that way. I use it mostly a la Bob Ross for leaves, foliage, and also flowers in the field. But you can also use it, for instance, for sea foam or water foam. But people also use it to fill in whole areas, and you can use the tip. Like the flat brush, you can use the tip for lines. Our next brush is made especially for lines. It's called the liner brush, and it's great for longer lines. You can load a lot of paint on top of it. Another great brush for lines is the angular brush. Like the top of the brush is very thin, so you can make great lines, but you can also use the sides for bigger areas.
Our last brush is the mop or the blending brush. I showed it earlier, and as the name suggests, you mostly use it for blending colors. It's often made from a softer material, and it really makes the blending easier together with the way it is shaped. Of course, you want your brushes to live as long as possible, therefore it's already important that you clean very well with water. During a painting session I always use 2 jars for that, and to wipe off excess on a paper towel and let them rest on their sides. If you see that hairs are sticking out, you can wet the brush and reshape it with soap, which is moving from forward to back and a little bit of turning on the soap. Then reshape the hairs with your fingers and just let it rest for a while, say a few hours, maybe a night. Then when the hairs have been forced into shape for a while, you can rinse the soap out of the brush. Then just clean and dry it off with a paper towel. Again, let it rest for a bit. And I always recommend to use the plastic protectors that come with brushes. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more acrylic painting tutorials.